Have you ever met someone who always has the perfect excuse, but never the truth? They say they care, but it's always when you're slipping. They show up when you're unsure, when you're tired, when you're just about to bend your boundaries. They don't yell, they don't demand, they don't even argue. They guide, they suggest, they smile while they steer. And if you're not grounded, you'll think it's kindness. You'll confuse their whispers for wisdom. But what they're really doing is shifting your balance so you lean in their direction. They want control, but not obviously. They don't push you. They lead you, subtly, softly, until one day you find yourself saying yes when every cell in your body is screaming no. That's how manipulation works, not through force, through fatigue. They wear you down, not in one day, in dozens of small concessions. You give a little, they take a lot. You explain, they distort. You hesitate, they pounce. And the worst part? They always make you feel like the decision was yours. That's why today, we're going to break the spell. No yelling, no arguing, no drama, just silence, stillness, strategy. Because manipulators don't fear confrontation. They fear exposure. And when you respond with calm, calculated clarity, you don't just shut them down, you show them you were never under their spell. So let's begin. 7 ways to end the game without even speaking. 1. Don't defend. When someone questions your boundary, the instinct is to explain, to prove you're not cold, not rude, not selfish. They say, "I just thought you didn't care." And you rush in with reasons, with backstory, with a whole performance trying to prove you're a good person. But here's the truth. Defensiveness is a gift to manipulators. Because once you start explaining, they start twisting. They don't need facts. They need friction. They want you rattled, unsure, off balance. But what if you didn't bite? What if instead of defending, you paused, stared, said nothing? Let the silence answer for you. Because silence doesn't need defending. It stands. And if someone's uncomfortable with your stillness, it's because they were relying on your reaction. The moment you choose peace over performance, you break the loop. 2. Don't flinch when they play the victim. Manipulators hate being told no, so they don't fight it directly. They wound themselves in front of you. They say, "I guess I just don't matter to you. Wow, I didn't think you'd treat me like this. Everyone else would have helped." It's not sadness, it's strategy. Because if they can't move you through logic, they'll try to move you through guilt. Here's the shift. They're not looking for your support. They're looking for your weakness. So don't explain, don't reassure, don't rescue. Let them sit in the consequence of hearing no. That's not cruelty. That's clarity. And when clarity shows up, manipulation breaks down. 3. Don't fill the silence. They say something loaded. You pause. And instantly, they start squirming. Because manipulators can't stand silence. It's a mirror, and they don't like what it shows. They say, "Is that all you're gonna say?" You nod. They laugh awkwardly. They push more. But every time you let silence stretch, they stretch with it. They get louder, sloppier, less controlled. because silence doesn't just stop manipulation, it exposes it. And if you can sit in that stillness, you'll watch their script fall apart. There's power in not reacting, not because you're passive, but because you're choosing your moment. You don't owe anyone instant answers, especially not those who ask with knives hidden behind words. 4. Don't explain past decisions. Manipulators love the past, not because they care, but because they can twist it. They'll say, "Why didn't you tell me this before?" "So last week when you said X, back then you didn't seem to mind." And suddenly, you're on trial for something you've already walked through. They want you stuck, explaining, replaying, defending who you used to be, so they don't have to deal with who you are now. But here's your move. Don't go back. You've evolved. You've drawn new lines. You say, "That was then. This is now." And then you stop talking. Because when you stop justifying your growth, you protect it. You're not obligated to drag someone through every step of your becoming, especially if their goal is to keep you from becoming more. Manipulators thrive in the echo of old you, but when you close that door, you starve their tactics. If this feels familiar, it's not by accident. You've been giving too much, too quietly. It's time to protect your energy. Subscribe, not for noise, but for clarity. 5. Don't repeat yourself. Manipulators ask the same question, in different forms. Not because they didn't hear you, but because they didn't get the answer they wanted. They'll say, "Wait, can you explain that again?" So what you're saying is, "Are you sure that's how you feel?" It's not curiosity. It's pressure, disguised as confusion. They want you to circle, to soften your tone, to change your stance. But when you repeat yourself, you're teaching them one thing. You're still unsure. So instead, you answer once, clearly, calmly, firmly. Then, you don't repeat. You don't elaborate. You don't add qualifiers like "just to be clear" or "what I meant was," because clarity doesn't need echo. And when you stop playing their loop, they have no more script. 6. Don't match their tone. They raise their voice. You stay level. They roll their eyes. You stay steady. Because the moment you match their chaos, you validate it. Manipulators don't need truth. They need drama. They bait you with tone so they can frame you with reaction. They shout, and when you shout back, they say, "See, you're just as bad." But when you don't play their pitch, you rob them of the scene. You say, "I'm not having this conversation like this." And you walk, not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. Because not everything loud deserves an answer. Sometimes your peace is the loudest thing in the room. 7. Don't give them your attention twice. Not everyone who speaks deserves to be heard. Again. Manipulators don't just test your boundaries. They test your memory. They say something off. You ignore it. They wait. Then they circle back. With the same energy, the same disrespect, the same tactic in new clothes. They're not looking for clarity. They're testing your threshold. They ask again. They poke again. They bait again. And every time you engage, even if it's to correct them, to defend your stance, to clarify your no, you teach them one thing. They still have access. But silence only works if it's final. Detachment only matters if it's consistent. So what do? You answer once. You hold the line. Then, when they circle back, you don't. You don't respond. You don't explain. You don't acknowledge. Because the second time is a trap. It's not a conversation. It's a reset button for manipulation. The truth is, most manipulators don't need another chance. They need a closed door. And the best way to disarm someone who feeds off attention is to starve them of it. Let them talk to the echo. Let them play the game without a partner. Because your silence isn't surrender, it's a statement. Let's talk about Laura. She wasn't loud, she wasn't dramatic, she was steady. The type of person who handled her problems quietly, who gave people the benefit of the doubt, who stayed long after she should have left. She had a friend, Jason. Funny, charming, always checking in. But something about Jason's care felt expensive. He never said, "You owe me," but his tone did. His silence did. His jokes about how much he does for her did. Every time Laura drew a line, he laughed. "Chill, you know I'm just playing." Every time she said no, he changed the vibe, went cold, made her question if she was overreacting. He never shouted. He suggested. He didn't demand. He implied. But manipulation isn't always loud. It's in the half smile when you say no. It's in the, "Are you mad at me?" after you finally choose yourself. Laura didn't fight. She reflected. She started seeing how every interaction left her a little smaller, less certain, like she had to shrink so Jason could feel big. And one day, she just stopped explaining. She didn't yell, didn't post, didn't make it a scene. She just stopped performing. And when she stopped, Jason lost his script. Because manipulators only function if you stay in character. That's what they never teach you. Your silence isn't empty. It's full of power, full of boundaries, full of truth they don't want to hear. And when you stop playing their game, you force them to see who's really been in control all along. There's a moment, right after you stop explaining, when everything gets quiet. No texts, no check-ins, no, just wondering how you are. And you wonder, did I do something wrong? Was I too cold? Was I too much? But what you're really feeling isn't guilt, it's withdrawal. Because when someone feeds off your energy, your peace feels like silence. And manipulators hate silence. That's when they try to rewrite the story. Suddenly you're acting different. You're not who you used to be. They don't say it to your face. They say it in groups, in subtle shade, in little updates masked as concern. She's distant now. He's changed. They're all about themselves these days. But none of it is truth. It's regret, masked as narrative. Because they don't miss who you are. They miss how accessible you were. They don't miss your company. They miss your compliance. And when they realize they can't pull your strings anymore, they label you difficult, or cold, or too into yourself. Because manipulators don't want equal energy. They want easy energy. And you stopped being easy. You stopped being available for half-hearted support, for emotional transactions, for connection that only went one way. So now, They're frustrated, not because you're gone, but because they still haven't figured out how to replace what you gave so freely. And deep down, they know you didn't change. You woke up. So what happens when you stop responding? When you stop shrinking, apologizing, bending your tone so they feel taller? You rise, not dramatically, not for attention, but steadily, like someone who finally remembered they were never small, they were just surrounded by people who needed them to be. You speak less, but your silence says more. You walk away, but somehow, you're more present than ever. You stop defending yourself, and suddenly, you start becoming yourself. Because here's the truth. Manipulators fear peace, not because it's quiet, but because it's honest. It reveals everything they tried to hide behind charm, behind humor, behind just checking in. Your peace exposes their games. So when you stop replying to the drama, you force them to face their own noise. And what they feel isn't confusion, it's exposure. They're not wondering where you went. They're wondering why you're still calm, why you're not running back to explain, why their usual tricks feel powerless. Because you outgrew the script. You realized your energy was never meant to be currency, and your attention was never meant to be bartered. You finally saw that giving without limits doesn't make you generous. It makes you a target. So now, you give with awareness, with boundaries, with presence. You disarm manipulators not with anger, not with revenge, but with detachment. Because you've learned, there's no need to fight to be understood by someone who was committed to misunderstanding you. You just walk with peace in your pocket and your power intact. The people who try to shake your calm are the ones who never had their own. But here, you've found your ground. So stay, watch this next video, and keep rising silently. Inner Fort, subscribe, stay strong.